Alrighty, welcome. Thank you for those of you that are in the room waiting for us. I'm here with Dan today. We're going to be breaking down UFC Vegas 72. Thank you for hopping on, Dan. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. Now, for all you Patrick stars that have been living under a rock, Dan hosts Half the Battle on YouTube. You can also find him on Twitter. He's got a lot of clout over there. What do you got, like 16,000 followers or something like that?
Something like that. But
Wow,
it's all real. It's all real. I didn't pay for none of them.
Gotcha. See, I have around 500, but we're a strong 500. We're like the 300 Spartans, if you get me. But all of Dan's stuff will be linked in the description. We talked a little bit before we went live here. We're both men of action. So if it's cool with you, Dan, we will jump right in to the card.
Absolutely, man. Let's do it.
Beautiful. Let's get it. Now, I know you are a betting man, Dan. I will bet you $10 that this fight somehow doesn't happen with Hailey Cowan and Jamey-Lyn Horth, excuse me.
Yeah, even money bet, so $10 just straight up, like.
yeah. I'll just Venmo you if it happens. But this is the third time we've seen Hailey Cowan scheduled to go, and I'm hoping that it happens this time. And I feel like each time her matchup has gotten a little bit more favorable, right? She had Eileen Perez first time around. I don't know what you had in that fight, but I leaned Perez personally. Then Tamaris Vidal, I thought Hailey Cowan might be able to beat Tamaris Vidal. Now Jamey-Lyn Horth, we know the least about her from any of her opponents. Long layoff, only 5-0. A lot of question marks here. So it's hard for me to give a hard lean on either side. Do you have a hot take here or a hard, confident lean?
Yeah, I mean, no hot take or anything like that, but I kind of actually lean towards the newcomer. Funny enough, like the thing with Hailey Cowan, man, is like she's a good athlete, but she's just super green right now. She's still figuring out a lot of things, especially on the ground. You know, like for example, like 2 fights ago, she got choked out by a fighter that was 1-2, and Hailey was 5-1 at the time. You know what I'm saying? So that's like shit that should not happen. Like she was probably a huge favorite if they had betting odds on that fight. And this new chick, like even though she's only 5-0. Like, and we don't talk about amateurs because it's like my boy Allen Iverson said, we ain't talking about practice, but like, this chick beat Lupi Godinez twice in amateurs. So like she's fought like real people. She won the LFA belt. Seems pretty well rounded. Yeah, I know the layoff, but at least like I can say that like hopefully in this layoff, like she's been, using it to level up or whatever the case may be. But bottom line, I think she's ready right now to compete with Hailey Cowan. So I'm going to pick her to win this fight.
I like that. I don't mind that. I love the Lupi Godinez shout as well, because Lupi is a bad one for sure. So I think it was Kelly Clayton that choked her out at like 38 years old or something like that when we're talking about Hailey Cowan as a big favorite in that matchup. So definitely not trustworthy. And also, Hailey Cowan's got a ton of airtime on the YouTube space because we've all talked about her for the last 45 days, 3 times now. But I do think that there's still something to be said about her making her debut. And this could also mess with her mentally as well. Like, I'm going to make the walk. I'm not going to make the walk. I'm going to make the walk. I'm not going to make the walk. We're finally here. She doesn't do anything particularly well. She's just athletic. And sometimes that's not going to work, especially against somebody who is a decent amount of aggressive, somebody who's going to come forward, throw hands, and give her a tough fight. So I'm with you there. I do think that Jamey-Lyn Horth is the better side here. Do you have a favorite bet on this one? Because I, for one, am really looking at that over 2.5 at around -195.
My favorite bet is pass. Actually, my favorite bet is the $10 bet we made.
Yeah, the one I gave you. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. I'll let you start us off for this next one with Boom Kelleher and Journey Newsom. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, Brian Kelleher, he's a true vet of the game. This guy's been around for a very long time. I mean, like, when I say a long time, I mean, he made his pro debut in 2011. This is a guy that beat Julio Arce twice on the regional scene. You know what I mean? So if you're not quite ready for his level, I mean, he will expose that. And with Journey Newsom, it's interesting because I haven't been that impressed with him, but like, I feel like he's been getting better despite coming off a loss. He was quite a sizable underdog in that fight, and I thought in the early going he fought kind of tough, but Morozov, even though he's not Russian, he has a bit of that Russian style, was kind of able to grind him out. And with Kelleher, it's like if your jiu-jitsu is on a certain level, you can definitely go out there and choke him out. But by a certain level, I mean Mario Bautista, I mean Umar, I mean Cheeto, you know what I mean? I mean Montel Jackson. And I just don't quite think that, you know, Journey Newsom is on that level. But at the same time, you know, Kelleher getting up there in age, he's going to turn 37 later this year. I personally am not interested in laying the chalk on him, but I'll pick him as a pure pick.
I'm in the same boat. I'm not going to be betting on Brian Kelleher personally, but I do think that the guys that Brian Kelleher beats and the guys that Brian Kelleher loses to, there's two types, right? And I think that Journey Newson is much closer to the guys that he beats. Like you said, he looked okay last time against Sergey Morozov. He beat Fernie Garcia, who personally I'm not all that high on, but I don't know if Journey Newson has the skill set to go out there and consistently win fights in the UFC. We've seen Brian Kelleher. We know he's going to fight for your money. We know that he's going to look for takedowns here. And we know that he's got that slick guillotine as well if Journey Newson catches or starts trying to grapple here. So I think that Brian Kelleher has all the tools to win this fight, but you see it on the screen right there, minus 210. That's way too rich for somebody who has nearly a 500 record in the UFC, in my opinion.
I feel you there, man, for sure. And yeah, it's just one of those things where it's probably going to be an exciting fight. Don't get me wrong. It's just kind of hard to, you know, I'd rather, you know, bet on people at good prices that are trustworthy. And I don't see those qualities in either of these guys. So it's a pass for me.
So no value on the Journey Newson dog here is what you're saying?
I mean, not for me, maybe for someone else, but like, and that doesn't mean that they're wrong. You know what I mean? Like I'm not clairvoyant, but for me personally going into it, I just don't have that trust with either of these guys. And the line's not like appetizing enough for me to say, fuck it and trust them anyway. So yeah, I'm good on that.
Makes sense to me. Next, we're going to be looking at Stephanie Egger. She is fighting Irina Alekseeva this week. And I'm going to throw three names at you here. I've got Bruna Brazil. I've got Gabby Fernandez. And who's the other one I have here? I've got one more for you. Jacqueline Amorim, right? Mm-hmm. All three women's MMA fighters who have made their debut in the UFC this year, all three have missed. All three have missed completely. This looks like a situation where the UFC veteran is going to put it on the Russian Ronda, who's not nearly as experienced, hasn't fought the higher level of competition, and is looking to do the exact same things that Stephanie Egger's good at, right? She's a judoka. She wants to come in here, get the fight to the ground, work her grappling. She's aggressive on the feet, but I think she's just going to punch her way into the clinch. She's going to get tossed. Stephanie Egger's going to get on top, and she's going to submit her. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, to call yourself the Russian Ronda, like you at least have to have like X amount of fights like won by armbar. And I think she's only got like one armbar win. So, you know, I didn't go back and watch her judo background. So I don't know like if she was like a gold medalist or what the deal is. But like, you know, back to kind of you were making that example of, you know, the chick making her debut against Hailey Cowan, how she's coming off that layoff. Like this girl is coming off a layoff too. Like she fights once every 2 years and she doesn't have much experience at all. And Egger, look, she's not, you know, a world beater by any means, but you still have to be on a certain level to go out there and beat her. You know, Tracy Cortez, Mayra Bueno Silva, like those chicks are either top 15 or borderline top 15. So from what I've seen so far of Irina, she's just not quite there yet. Not saying that she can't be there one day, but right now a little bit too green for my liking. So for that reason, you know, I'll side with the favorite, Stephanie Egger.
I hope she didn't call herself the Russian Ronda. I hope somebody gave her that nickname because that'd be something.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. It's funny. Like they always talk about how like you can't give yourself the nickname. Someone else has to give it to you.
For sure.
Why do I have a feeling that she gave herself that nickname?
She got the armbar and was like, this is it.
Yeah,
this is the one. I like the under in this fight, and I was doing a little bit of research prior to, and we've talked about this a lot on my channel, is when you look at women's MMA, I believe fights that were scheduled for 3 rounds this year, there's been about 23 of them in the UFC in the women's divisions. 17 of them have gone over, and I don't believe one of them has gone that has gone over hasn't gone the distance. But to me, this looks like a situation where the under makes a ton of sense because Stephanie Egger's finishing almost everybody that she beats, right?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, it seems like she's pretty much an armbar fighter. I think that's been the case. And also, like, in her last loss, she got finished in the first round as well. So, yeah, actually, when I look at her record, she's won, like, every single fight except one by finish. So, yeah.
And if she's throwing the armbar out there, maybe she's the Swedish Ronda or the Swiss Ronda, if you will, right?
Oh my God, the Swiss Ronda, man, that'd be something. But it only counts if she gives herself the nickname, right?
Yeah, winner gets the armbar queen title. Although she did tap. Did she tap? Did she tap to Mayra Bueno Silva?
You know, from the camera angle I saw, she didn't tap, but it was a nice looking armbar. So, you know, I give Mayra Bueno a lot of credit for just setting that up. But let me also say this, though. Even though I didn't see a tap, I didn't see a protest either. And also, like, as soon as the ref stopped them, like, Stephanie Egger stopped fighting, whereas, like, someone that truly didn't tap, like, is going to keep fighting. And if you stop it, they're going to be like, yo, what the fuck? Like, and there wasn't any kind of protest. So it was almost like she accepted it. So that makes me think that maybe I didn't see the tap. Maybe it was a verbal tap. I don't know.
Yeah. And maybe she didn't have the wherewithal in the moment to play it off either. Because later they're like, did you tap? She's like, I don't think so. I don't think Pierre Rodriguez tapped a couple of weeks ago. Do you?
Oh, no, she certainly didn't tap. It looked like she was kind of like peeling the knee a little bit, and that might have looked like a tap, but like she had more of a case. But like, man, I also think in her case, though, like, had like the ref let it go a little bit longer, she would have got her arm broke.
Yeah, that's very possible. Very possible. Favorite bet there? I told you I like the under. Is there anything you like there? Is that another pass spot for you?
Oh, it's a pass, bro. It's a pass. But I wish you luck on that under. I mean, it's at dog money. It's under 2.5. This chick is completely unproven. So, you know, I'd much rather take an under 2.5 than an under 1.5, especially at dog money. So I don't think that's a bad bet. And I guess the reason why it's lying like that is because a good majority of these women's fights go the distance. But like you were pointing out, what, like 90% of her wins are inside the distance. So, and this chick she's fighting is completely unproven. So that, yeah, I'm glad you brought that to my attention. It might be a sneaky under here.
I mean, it's better than laying minus 300 on Stephanie Egger, right? I saw that number. I rang the alarm out here. So next we can move on. We're looking at Trey Waters stepping in on short notice. This guy fought like 8 days ago or something like that. He is fighting Josh Quinlan, who was supposed to be, I don't even remember who Josh Quinlan was supposed to be fighting now that I'm thinking about it, but I just don't see how Trey Waters can step in here and stand across from this power puncher for 15 minutes. I really don't.
Yeah, I mean, so Quinlan was supposed to fight Angelusa.
That's who it was.
Man,
I liked Angelusa there.
I liked Angelusa in that fight, man. You know, I thought that, like, because my whole thing with Josh Quinlan is, look, we all agree he's got heavy hands, no questions asked, but he's very unproven when fights get extended. And I cannot wait until I get an opportunity to fade this guy. It's just, man, when I watch Trey Waters, so he's got some good things going for him. The size, obviously, he's 6'5" with a 77-inch reach. It's just a matter of, does he know how to use that size, you know, to his benefit? Because if he knows how to fight tall, then hopefully for his sake, he can keep Josh Quinlan on the outside, kind of pick him apart a little bit. But from what I've seen from Trey Waters, he's one of these guys that, you know, he kind of fights with his hands down, his chin up in the air. He's a little bit cocky. He's got a little bit of swag, which I love the showmanship. I love, you know, dudes that put on shows and that, you know, are cocky. But if you're cocky, you got to back it up. And I'm just not convinced that he does back it up. I mean, if you watch, so he had that fight against Gabriel Bonfim, and I got to give him credit, man. Like, his guillotine attempt, he had one of those long man guillotines. And the fact that Gabriel Bonfim not only escaped that guillotine, but turned that shit into a Von Flue choke, you got to give Bonfim a lot of credit. Like, that's not a knock on Trey Waters. That's just credit to Bonfim. But in his follow-up fight, like you mentioned, he fought like a couple of weeks ago. Man, I felt like he did like literally nothing the entire fight. Like, there was no output whatsoever. And then he just caught the dude with a beautiful combination. When he finally decides to let his shit go, it looks good. It's just, you know, I just don't like guys with that low of output. So I think that if Quinlan knows how to fight a tall guy, because you got to know how to close the distance, right? If you want to fight a guy that's 6'5" with a 77-inch reach, that's not just something that you're just going to automatically know how to do. You have to have practice doing stuff like that. So I don't know if he knows how to or not, but I'm going to say that if he knows how to address fighting someone that much taller, he's probably going to get on the inside. He's going to crack this guy super hard. So I do agree with Quinlan, you know, being favored here, but you know, I'm just not trying to lay it, man, because I'm looking for the chance to fade Quinlan. I was hoping Angelusa was the guy, not sold on Trey. So my pick is Quinlan, another pass for me.
I loved Angelusa because that guy's not really going to get knocked out, right? That guy's going to stand across from you. He's going to make you work. And I don't know if Josh Quinlan's going to look all that good late. I hate tall guy defense. Two things I hate. Two things I hate: tall guy defense and guillotine attempts. And it's funny that you brought that up. How many times have we seen guys, how many times have we seen fighters in general jump gilly and it just doesn't work all the time, all the time. So I don't like seeing that, but I do really think that if he is able to stay on the outside, all it really takes is one from Trey Waters, like you saw in his last fight. And with Josh Quinlan, you're expected to fight Angelusa. He fought, who did he fight most recently? It was Jason Witt, right? You're expected to fight Jason Witt, or you fight Jason Witt, short, stocky guy. Angelusa, around the same size as him. Trey Waters might be a situation like we saw with Francis Marshall and William Gomis, where he just can't figure him out. He's too long. He's too lengthy. He moves too well. And if he takes too much time to figure it out, around round 2, halfway through round 2, into the 3rd round, he might not look all that good. I don't love that Trey Waters just fought, but 5 inches of height, 5 inches in reach. I know that people make way too big of a deal about these advantages, but that's saying something if these guys are just going to stand up. So I'm actually going to go with the short notice replacement. I'm going to pick Trey Waters to win this fight. I don't know if Josh Quinlan's going to be able to crash the pocket and close the distance, and I don't know how good he's going to look in the 2nd and 3rd round, but it's greasy either way on paper.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, I've been looking for the chance to fade Quinlan. So if this is the chance and I'm passing on it, I'm going to be pissed. But at the same time, I know that there's going to be another opportunity to fade him too, because I'm just not that high on his skills. And also, like, and the guy's a juice head too, so I'm not a fan of his either. But, like, man, he's got good power. But at the same time, I don't want to overrate the power because he knocked out Jason Witt, who has been knocked out a million times. But, man, when I watch Trey Waters, it's like the volume was so damn low. It's like if he can learn how to use his size, he's going to be a problem. I just have to see it first. So it's a pass for me, bro.
I feel you. I feel you. You don't like the undershot, if anything, or fight doesn't go the distance. That's going to be probably juiced up, though. That'd be minus 400 or something crazy.
Yeah, fight doesn't go the distance, it's minus 350. Listen, man, I'm not in the business of forcing bets. So to me, it's like, you know, it's all good. But I'll go Quinlan, but, you know, not with a lot of confidence.
I feel that. I feel that. Now, I'll let you start this next one off because I believe this is a friend or somebody you know personally, right? You know Cody Durden, right?
Yeah. Listen, Cody Durden's a friend of mine. I'm definitely biased here. I mean, like, I've been to Cody Durden's house before. I've met his wife and his kids. So, like, you know, I'm not going to pick against Cody Durden, but I mean, I can definitely break down this fight objectively. I like Charles Johnson a lot too. Charles Johnson's a guy that, you know, he won the LFA belt, came into the UFC as a champion. He's long for the weight class. He's got good volume. He can be taken down, but he tends to get back up when he gets taken down. So this is a formidable challenge for Cody Durden. Now, if you want to talk a little bit narrative, I think that Charles Johnson is underestimating Cody Durden. If you look at any of the things he's been saying on his social media, he thinks that this is going to be an easy fight. He thinks he's just going to walk right through Cody Durden. And if he does that, you tip your cap to him because Cody Durden is not an easy fight. Like the only time someone's ever ran through him was Mokaev. Like the Jimmy Flick fight, Cody was busting up Jimmy Flick and he got caught with like a once in a lifetime submission. Like if they ever ran it back, I think Cody would mop the floor with Jimmy Flick. But the Mokaev fights, Mokaev's the only guy that's ever really ran through him. And Mokaev ran through both of them. Like he just did it in different fashion. With Cody, he set the record for one of the fastest finishes in flyweight history. And with Charles, he set the record for most takedowns in flyweight history. So Mokaev set records on both these guys. So basically, I think that Charles, from what I can gather, man, from his interviews, from everything he's been posting on social media, he does not respect Cody Durden at all. He thinks that this is just going to be Cody wrestling for dear life. And, you know, Charles probably thinks he's just going to get a guillotine or stop his takedowns and knock him out. But Cody can stand too, man. I mean, Cody went to Fortis MMA and coach Saif Saud, a guy that we all hold in such high regard, one of the best coaches in the world, told Cody Durden, he's like, Durden, why don't you ever stand up? Your striking is better than your wrestling. For Coach Saif Saud to tell Cody Durden that his striking is better than his wrestling, I mean, that says a lot because we all hold Coach Saif Saud's opinion in high regard. So, I mean, I think that Cody's going to surprise Charles Johnson here when he does stand with him for a little bit. And then after that, once Charles is kind of thrown off by the fact that, wait, this guy's standing with me, that's when I think that the takedown attempts are going to come. And that's when I think he will be able to take him down. And then the thing with Charles, man. So I'm like one of the only guys that scored the Zalgas fight for Charles. Everyone thinks that he lost that fight, but here's my thing. Even though I'm one of the only guys that scored that fight for Charles, it wasn't that great of a performance, man. Like I expected more from him in that Zalgas fight. But the reason I scored that fight for Charles is because if you actually watch it closely, like most of Zalgas fights, most of Zalgas punches are hitting off the shoulder or hitting off the elbow. He's swinging at air. Whereas when Charles was landing, he's landing clean. He's landing sharp. That's why I scored that fight for Charles Johnson. And then the Buday fight, I thought that there was an argument that Charles could have won that too. But my thing was like, he gassed out. And Charles is known for being a dude that has ridiculous cardio, man. I mean, he's a dude that was a former cross-country runner. And he wants to be like the Cowboy Cerrone of the flyweight division, taking all these fights on short notice. So you'd think that he would have been in good shape there. I was kind of surprised. He needed it to be a catch weight at 130 pounds. He's the one that gassed out in the third round. So that was actually really surprising. Maybe we can write it off as a one-time thing, but man, I think that everyone that took that plus 170 on Cody Durden, everyone that took that plus 150 on Cody Durden, y'all did the right thing because now it's plus 120. So y'all beat the line. Y'all did your job. And I still think it's a dogger pass situation because, I mean, unless Charles just comes out here and just runs through him, this is going to be a competitive, honest fight. So this is a dogger pass fight for me, and my pick is Cody.
I feel that. I like that. And I want to go back to some of the things that you touched on along the way. I said it in my video earlier in the week. Charles Johnson won a fight that he lost against Olga Sumagulov, and he lost the fight that he won against Ode Osborne. But I don't love that he gassed out even at the catchweight against somebody in Ode Osborne who is a gasser, right? It's not like Ode Osborne, some cardio monster. Most of his fights are ending pretty early. So that was concerning. And to me, again, I touched on this in the video earlier in the week. You don't know what you're going to get out of Charles Johnson, not only fight to fight, but round to round. Like the guy might come out like he did in round 3 against Olga Sumagulov, throw beautiful, straight, crisp boxing, or he's just going to let you do whatever you want. Like we saw against Muhammad Makayev, giving up crucial takedowns late in the fight against Ode Osborne. And the thing with Cody Durden is you know exactly what you're going to get. Like he's going to fight the same every time. He's going to come at you with everything that he's got. He's going to take you down. He's going to hold you against the fence. He's going to beat you up. And I love what you said about Saif Saud telling him to stand up. Was that recent? Like, was that before the last fight that he had, or?
Yeah. So, I mean, he trains normally at an ATT with like Pantoja and Kyoji Horiguchi and Pedro Munoz. Those are like his main training partners for this camp. But before his last fight, he did like a week or two at Fortis MMA. And that's what Coach Saif Saud told him.
Gotcha. Because I do think that he could surprise Charles Johnson on the feet because Charles Johnson's so reactive as opposed to proactive, not only with his grappling, but sometimes with his striking. Like I almost compare it to Bobby Green, where he just kind of lets too much go, right? He lets too much happen. And it seems like at times he's overconfident in his boxing and his head movement, and shit like that could get you caught, especially against somebody like Cody Durden, who's really going to dig his heels in and let it go. I do think on his best day, Charles Johnson gives Cody Durden problems because of that boxing, because of the kicks, because of the footwork, but you don't really know what version of him you're going to get. Now, I've watched Technique Tuesday, right? I've seen you in the gi. So I don't want to pick Charles Johnson and you fly from Atlanta to Western New York and put me in a Darce or something. But on my show, I did pick Charles Johnson to win, but it's not something that I would say you should lay minus 200 on. I think that the line's a lot closer though, because money has been coming in on Durden, but I think the best bet in this fight would be the over, or the fight goes the distance. I do think we're going to have a decision on our hands, and most likely a split decision, because I could see both guys having a ton of success.
Yeah, I mean, listen, picking the opposite side of me is not disrespect. You know, I'd only fly over there for disrespect. That's not disrespect. But let me say this, man. Like, to your point, you know, comparing him to Bobby Green, I think that's a great example. And one thing that him and Bobby Green have in common is that for whatever reason, they always think they're winning the fight. Like, even if they're not doing shit, they think that they're winning the fight no matter what. And those kind of qualities are going to get you on the wrong end of a lot of split decision losses, man. Same shit used to happen with Jorge Masvidal back in the day. I don't know if you remember. I'm talking like way prior to the Ben Askren knee. Like the famous saying was always, gets robbed more than a 7-Eleven, you know? So I can absolutely see like once Charles Johnson's had like 10 UFC fights, there's probably going to be a bunch of split decision losses that everyone thought he won along the way.
Yeah,
everyone
no,
thought, yeah, exactly.
I could see that. He definitely thinks he's winning the whole time, for sure.
No matter what.
Against Zolga Sumagulov, I thought it was pretty cool when it looked like, well, I forget what it's called, like the perennial nerve or something. Zolgas kicked him in his leg, and it looked like his leg went dead, and he just started stomping his leg, like to bring it back to life. And he's stomping the leg, throwing a punch at the same time, and you could see Zolgas kind of like look down for a second, like what's going on down there? Boom, gets caught with a jab or something like that. So it's cool. I like both guys. I think both guys are going to continue to win fights in the UFC. I think it's close and competitive either way. You have Cody Durden. I have Charles Johnson ever so slightly. I said I like it to go the distance. Do you have a favorite bet or a lean on this one?
Just Cody Durden money line.
There you go. There you go. Did you get on it early?
Nah, man, because I thought, and you know, I pride myself on getting the best of the line 9 out of 10 times. And I thought that Charles was going to get a lot of love because I thought people hated Cody Durden. And I was wrong, man. I was fucking dead wrong. So I missed the line, but we'll see. Maybe some Charles Johnson love comes in and I can get a better price. But man, I was hoping for that plus 170. And then I wake up and it's plus 150. I'm like, well, shit, now the Charles action is going to come in. I wake up again and it's plus 120. So I'm like, now it's going to happen, you know? So we'll see.
Yeah, now you just got to wait till like Friday, literally Friday, Saturday, and let it go the other way and kind of stabilize a little bit.
I got patience, so it's all good. We can wait for the best line.
There you go. There you go. Before we get into the next one, guys, if you haven't already, like the stream, comment something in the chat, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. If you're watching this after the fact, comment something for the algorithm, because when you I don't need to explain it to y'all. You know how the algorithm works. All right. So you comment, it works out for us. And go follow Dan on all of his socials. Again, that's going to be linked in the description. We can get to this next fight. And Dan, you might need to check me here, brother, because I don't know how this is a pick'em. I have no idea. I think that Martin Buday is a true heavyweight and Jay Collier is not a true heavyweight, right? To say the least. I think that Martin Buday leans on him up against the fence. He throws more doesn't throw more punches at range, but he throws heavier punches at range. And I think he's going to be the one who's fresher in the third round. I don't see how Jake Collier gets even a stitch, an ounce, a drop of respect on the feet when they're at range. This guy hasn't recorded a knockout since 2016, and that was down at middleweight, right? So I don't see how Martin Buday loses this fight. I have a bet on him. The people on the website are going to see the bet, but I don't see how Martin Buday is not a minus 250 here. Tell me what I'm missing, please.
I mean, you know, I saw someone tweet this. He wrote Buday equals Butte. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, listen, man, I'd say that Collier is probably the faster guy because he's the smaller guy. I'd say that Collier probably has the better volume and he's got the more experience. But besides that, I do agree with you. I mean, it's not even a matter of agreeing with you. It's factual that Buday is going to be the much larger man here. And, you know, I agree with you that if he wins this fight, it's definitely going to come via, you know, pinning this guy up against the fence, landing those knees to the body, frustrate him, start to get him a little tired, and then just kind of wear on him as the fight progresses. So I got the same pick as you. I'm just not as confident as you. You know, it's funny. A lot of people thought he got robbed, or the dude he fought got robbed the last time. But man, let me pull up what fight happened right before them, because the fight that happened right before them actually put me to sleep. So I missed the Martin Buday versus Lucas Brzeski fight. I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm pulling it up.
Oh, you didn't see it, or did?
Oh, okay. So dude, so check this out. So I watched Gabriel Benitez, you know, knock out Charlie Ontiveros. It was all good. Then right after that, it was Nina Nunes versus Cynthia Calvillo, right?
Oh, that was a bad one,
dude. So Nina Nunes versus Cynthia Calvillo puts me to sleep. So I wake up and I see Martin Buday get his arm raised against Lucas Brzeski. I didn't even see the fight. I just see him get his arm raised. And I go on Twitter, and it's like this big uproar. Everyone's saying that Lucas got robbed. So then when Lucas fought recently against another ATL guy,
Carl Williams.
Carl, you know, I watched it back. I was like, bro, like that wasn't really a robbery. Like, did he cover his price tag? No, but like that wasn't like that bad. I've seen way worse. But here, like, I agree with you on terms of, like, the path to victory. Like, you know, just to be the heavyweight in there, right? Be the heavyweight, be the bigger man, and treat him like a middleweight. But I'm just not interested in betting it, but I wish you luck, man. I'm, as a pure pick, I got Martin as well.
I appreciate that you consistently are wishing me luck, Dan. That makes me
Yeah,
feel
man.
good. No, I do. Dude, the stunt that Jake Collier pulled against Chris Barnett was
That really
absurd.
happened, right?
He was on top of Chris Barnett. Chris Barnett just got up. Like, it was like what Derek Lewis says, like, oh, jujitsu, just get up, and he did that. And then he just beat up on Jake Collier. And the famous John Jones quote, right? If you look soft to the midsection, it's because you are soft to the midsection. So I think Martin Buday holds him up against the fence, lands a ton of knees to the body. And I do think that he wins a decision because I think Jake Collier is going to be able to hold tough throughout. But I do definitely lean Martin Buday in this situation. We have some more heavyweight action coming up, and this is another one that I feel super confident in one side of. I will let you set the table for us when we're looking at Salsa Boy and Pizzao.
Shit, you feel super confident on one side. I'm actually curious to hear what you got to say. But listen, this is what I got to say regarding this fight: is that Rogerio de Lima, obviously he's the more proven just by the sole merit that he's been in the UFC since 2011. That's a long ass time to be in the UFC, and he's actually a guy that I've enjoyed betting against. But when I've bet against him, it's always been guys that could submit him, like Nikita Krylov, even what's the name of that Russian? Antigulov. So I bet him in both those spots at dog money. It's actually around the same dog money that that Salsa Boy is at now, around plus 130 to plus 150 range. But the difference being that, those guys were, it was reliable for them to come out there and submit De Lima. Because for some reason, De Lima is one of these guys that, like, he's pretty skilled. It's just that, like, I don't know what the deal is. Like, he'll tap to shit that's like not really locked in, and it's not like a one-time thing. It's like a multiple-time thing. Like I said, like, you watch the Nikita Krylov fight, you watch the Antigulov fight. Like, those submissions didn't even look like they were really locked in, man. And then you watch the Stefan Struve fight. He 10-8s him in round 1. Then round 2, he quits. So this has been like an ongoing thing in his fights. The Blagoy Ivanov fight, that's an interesting one because I guess that's more kind of to what this could be if Waldo's able to get this win. Kind of, a 3-round stand-up fight where, most of the takedowns get stuffed. See, the thing with Waldo is he's still kind of green, but like I have seen those improvements every fight. And, he's a former baseball player, and I can see that athleticism, man. Like, when he throws his right hands, it's like someone's pitching a fastball, man.
For sure.
So I can absolutely see, like, this dude just getting better every single fight. But this is a test, man, because, like, you think about it, like, he only fought fucking Jared. So he fought a random dude. He fought Danilo Suzart. I don't know who that is. You don't know who that is on Contender Series. Everyone in the chat doesn't know who that is. But handled him.
That's nobody's favorite fighter.
But he handled him how you're supposed to handle someone that no one knows who he is. But then the next fight against Jared Vanderaa, he clearly won, but like, man, it looked like the leg kicks might have been an issue, whatever. But the fight against Chase Sherman was a big step in the right direction. First round was a little close, but man, second and third round, he really put it on him. And I loved the volume, man. I mean, round 2, Waldo goes out there and lands 71 significant strikes. And in the whole fight in total, he landed 147 significant strikes. When you look at Rogerio de Lima's entire career, let's put it like this, man. Waldo landed more strikes in round 2 of the Chase Sherman fight than De Lima's landed in any fight ever. Like, the most strikes that De Lima's ever landed was in the second to last fight against Blagoy. He landed 68 strikes. So let me just repeat what I said. Waldo landed more strikes in round 2 versus Chase Sherman than De Lima did in the entire Blagoy Ivanov fight. So, I mean, I get why people are on De Lima here just because of the experience, but like, I think I'm more down to ride with like the potential, especially at dog money. And let's see if Waldo is ready to rise to the occasion. Like, I'm not sold on it, but at these odds, if I were forced to make a bet, I'd probably roll the dice on the dog. And let's see. Show me if you're ready or not.
I like that. That's very that was very thorough. Shout out Scott Williams in the chat as well. I love the volume from Waldo. I really do. But I talked about this on my video earlier in the week. 147 significant strikes at the heavyweight division and no knockdown. That's crazy. That's crazy. That's like going out in the rain and not getting wet is what I likened it to. Marcos Rogerio de Lima has only been knocked out once in his career, and that was way before he came to the UFC. Can he lose a decision here based on volume? Sure. But is he going to chop this guy down with the heaviest leg kicks he's ever felt in his life? You better believe it. Like, I could see him literally knocking him off his feet with leg kicks. On top of that, if he is able to throw him, if he's able to get a hip toss, if he's able to get on top of him, I think it's curtains. I think he submits this guy easy. I hate the gas tank. I hate how slow he is. I hate the low output. But there's not a whole lot from Waldo Cortes-Acosta that I love. Like you mentioned, the baseball, he's throwing the same hand like a million times, it seems, during these fights. Like he's not really putting together combinations that are surprising, and they're definitely traditional, but they're very basic. And it's something that Pizarro has had to have seen thousands of times in competition and in practice. And I think this is a huge test for Salsa Boy against a guy who, I wouldn't call him a contender at heavyweight, but definitely somebody who is a good test, right? A good test to see where you're at, almost like a gatekeeper for those upper echelon heavyweights. So I think that Marcos Rogerio de Lima has more ways to win this fight. I like where the odds are. And because he has more ways to win this fight, because he has more experience, because he has that iron chin against the guy who's only throwing thunder and lightning, but nothing else. If you ever look at the stats, his leg kicking numbers are next to none, right? I think he threw 0 in his last fight. I think he threw 6 against Jared Vanderaa, or have those swapped. But I mean, that's 30 minutes of action with 6 leg kicks thrown. So that's definitely the weak part of his game. You can tell he's a top heavy guy, that boxer background, right? So I think that Marcos Rogerio de Lima gets it done. He's not somebody who I want to bet on. I don't even want to take the under or the over in this spot. This is a spot that I pass on from a straight betting perspective, because low-level heavyweight MMA, you never know what's going to happen. But I've been looking for a reason to fade Waldo since he came off of the Contender Series, and they've given him layups, but this is not one of them.
Listen, man, I mean, no one's exempt from that first L. So
Yeah.
I can see it too. And I'm not even passionate about picking Waldo. It'd just be more so about like, let's see, like, this is that next logical step up in competition, right? You got past the Vanderas and the Shermans. Those are like the bottom of the barrel. Now we're getting to the mid tier. Are you ready for the mid tier or not? So this is going to let us know. So I'm excited to see if he's ready or not. I'm
surprised they didn't give him the holy trinity, right? Like you get Chase Sherman, you get Jared Vanderaa, Parker Porter's right there. you could have called Parker Porter up, right?
They gave Tony Braxton Parker Porter next.
Is Tony Braxton the name? Like the singer?
No, that's the name of like the famous singer. It's something Braxton.
Oh, okay. I was going to say the same name would have been crazy.
Yeah.
This next fight is a scrap, an absolute scrap at 145 pounds with Juicy J, who always comes to fight. Like if you're an MMA fan, you're a Julian Erosa fan. And then Fernando Padilla on the other side, long, rangy, young guy. I am interested to hear what you have to say about this one. I don't have a confident lean one way or the other, but I do think that this is a sneaky spot. I will say that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, to beat Julian Erosa, you must knock out Julian Erosa, period. So it's about determining if Fernando's going to knock him out or not. Like that's literally what it comes down to in my eyes. Like the times that Julian loses fights that are not getting knocked out is like the Grant Dawson fight, which Fernando does not have the grappling of Grant Dawson, or the Patty fight, which a lot of people feel like was a big robbery at the time, which tends to be a recurring theme with a lot of these Paddy Pimblett fights now that, you know, the Jared Gordon and whatnot. But so besides those two decisions, like the Paddy Pimblett, which everyone thought was a robbery, and the Grant Dawson, which, you know, Grant's a very elite grappler in MMA, dudes have to knock out Julian Erosa. And when I say knock out, I do not mean knock down. I mean knock out, bro. Because like I've seen Julian go out there against multiple people and get dropped. And if they don't finish him, man, he goes back out there and he finishes you. Like, for example, you look at the Sean Woodson fight, and Woodson was a massive favorite in that spot. Yep. Woodson drops Erosa, but he couldn't get him out of there. Big mistake. Nate Landwehr drops Erosa right off the bat, couldn't get him out of there. Then he gets caught. Charles Jourdain drops Erosa, but couldn't get him out of there. Then he gets finished. So my point here, man, is that like, if you're betting Fernando here, you better be damn confident that he's going to knock out Julian Erosa, because if he does not knock out Julian Erosa, he's losing this fight. And the thing with Fernando is he's experienced, man. He's already had 18 pro fights under his belt. So he's paid his dues to get to the UFC. And he's the kind of guy that, like, on his regional scene, man, he was fighting Dan Ige. You understand what I'm saying? So he's tested. He's fought tough competition. He submitted Derek Minner on his regional scene, which like, hey, that's a UFC vet. Even though he was involved in fight fixing, that's still a UFC vet. He finished him in the first round.
In round one. And
in round one, my man. Hey, you did your thing, bro. So, but here's my issue, man. It's like in 18 pro fights, Fernando's only got 4 knockouts. Now, that does not mean that he cannot get his 5th knockout this weekend against Julian Erosa, because he might. Because at some point, man, like so Julian's been knocked out 7 times, but he's also got like a ridiculous amount of fights. You know, he's had 29 fights or 28 fights that we know of. Or excuse me, 38 fights, because he's 28-10. He's had 38 fights that we know of, right? Because you also had those fights on The Ultimate Fighter, if you want to count those two. One where he actually got knocked out by Artem Lobov, and who knows about amateurs too? Who knows about fights that are off his record? So this guy's very, very seasoned. At what point does Julian start taking these KO losses, and it's like KO after KO after KO, where like you can no longer win anymore? You can no longer compete at this level. You're bound to getting knocked out every fight. Like, you know, like what happened to Chuck Liddell at the end of his career. When does that finally start to happen to Julian Erosa? If now's the time, then Fernando's very live here. But if, like I said, if Fernando does not knock out Julian, man, I mean, look at the guys Julian has beaten, bro. Hakeem Dawodu. And like, it wasn't like he just went out there and humped Hakeem Dawodu, man.
No, he outclassed him.
He outstruck him, outclassed him, took him down. He did everything he wanted to Hakeem Dawodu. In the Steven Peterson fight, look, I know Steven Peterson's a walking punching bag, but if you can land 155 strikes in a 3-round fight at the UFC level, like that's a lot of fucking volume. Charles Jourdain, Nate Landwehr, Sean Woodson, Jamal Emmers, like this is a completely different level. So it comes down to this. Like I said, like I've been saying, I've been repeating myself, is you got to answer this question for yourself. You got to internally think, is Fernando going to knock this guy out or not? If you conclude yes, then take the underdog shot. If you conclude that he's going to drop him but not finish him, you got to go with Erosa here. So I'm going to pick Erosa. But I mean, like, am I going to be surprised one bit if Erosa gets starched for the 9th or 10th time? No, I am not.
No, you can't be. You can't be. And the thing about Julian Erosa, you're right. Like, you got to kill him. You have to, right? It's the only way. But he reminds me a lot of like Matt Schnell, right? Who gets wobbled so often, but he's super dangerous at the same time. Julian Erosa against Nate Landwehr, to take Nate Landwehr's best shots and then to flatline him within the same minute, within the same 30 seconds is absolutely absurd. My issue with Julian Erosa, though, is not only has he been knocked out and flatlined completely, like you just mentioned, but also, like you mentioned, a ton of fights. You've got the Ultimate Fighter. You've got all of that time in the gym as well. Like that's something that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about, but you're having wars in the gym. Like how many full on fights do you think he's had in the gym because one guy just started throwing a little too heavy at some point? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So tons of miles on him. And you're right. Like Julian Erosa may eventually get to that point where he's taking a couple of knockout losses in a row. I think that this is a scary matchup for Fernando Padilla because there are easier fights at 145 pounds than this guy. Like this guy is going to take it to you, and you're doing that in your debut at 26 years old after not fighting for 2 years. Like that's a tall order for this kid. On the other side, though, Fernando Padilla, yes, he's got 4 knockout wins, but that's also because he's got 8 submission wins as well, right? He's finishing guys in the first round by sub. He doesn't have a whole lot of time to knock him out if he's tying up a neck or an arm or something like that. What I talked about on my channel with this fight, it kind of reminds me of, do you remember when Natalia Silva made her UFC debut against Jasmine Jasudavicius? And everybody was on Jasudavicius, and then Natalia Silva just stalled on her, and she was like 25 years old, hadn't fought in 2 or 3 years or something like that. The unknowns to me, because of how young he is and the amount of time that he hasn't been fighting, are super intriguing to me. And that's why I do like the Fernando Padilla side, but I do also know that Julian Erosa if he doesn't get knocked down in the first round, probably submits this kid in the second or third round. I will say this too. When it comes to the length, I think he's going to have trouble, right? Steven Peterson, split decision, right? He put it on Steven Peterson, but he got it back just as much. Alex Caceres flatlined him, and Alex Caceres has never done that in his life, right? Like that was almost unforgivable territory. Sung Woo Choi knocked him out. And these are all long, lanky guys. You see this kid's 6'1", 76-inch reach for the division. Do you think he's going to struggle with the length at all? Do you see that happening?
I mean, maybe. I
know it's possible, but do you think it could happen?
It's more so about struggling with big shots than it is struggling like winning minutes. Like I think if it comes down to like, you know, both guys land a bunch of shots and like who has more volume, Julian Erosa has got more volume. But if it comes down to like who's landing knockdowns and things like that, that's where you got to be careful, because Julian is always susceptible to getting knocked out. Always. That's always a concern when you're picking him.
Absolutely. And I will say this too about picking against Julian Erosa. He's the favorite, right? And I don't know what the line is exactly right now. On the screen, it says -190. I know that could have changed a little bit, but Julian Erosa is not the kind of guy you bet on as a favorite, right? You bet on Julian Erosa as an underdog, right? Come up against Sean Woodson. You see him come up against Nate Landwehr, Amin Hakeem Dawodu, right? But against Alex Caceres, he was a favorite. If I check here, he was in the same range, right? -170. And again, knocked out cold by Bruce Leroy. So I would love to bet on Julian Erosa as an underdog, because that's just where he thrives. But the plus money on the other side, I'll take a shot on the young guy. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense too. I mean, this is a dogger pass situation. I mean, pure pick, I'm going Erosa, but just betting wise, that's different than pure pick. Just know that you always have a knockout chance. Like when you're fighting against Julian Erosa, you just got to understand that if your guy can't knock him out, he's probably going to lose.
Yeah, no, I get that. And one thing I want to talk about Padilla and just fighters in general, it's kind of outside of this fight, but you made mention to it. The dude fought Dan Ige, and he fought Derek Minner, and he also fought Spike Carlisle, who didn't do great in the UFC, but he made it to the UFC. There are probably fighters, not probably, you see it sometimes, like when you're researching fights, where the same guy starts coming up on multiple guys' records. How many fighters do you think that are out there who in their 5th and 6th and 7th fights just by bad luck pulled UFC caliber talent and just never got to get to their full potential because they were just fighting assassins on the regional scene? It probably happens all the time, right?
It does. You know, you see two kinds of guys. You see the kind of guys that truly will fight anyone, anytime, any place to their detriment. And then you see the guys that just want to pad their records, that care more about, you know, having that pretty record and the social media clout than they do about actually testing themselves. So you got to give Fernando a lot of credit. He's a real fighter. He's the kind of guy that wanted to test himself from day one. And now 18 fights later, he's finally in the UFC. So, I mean, you can't help but tip your cap to a guy like that. And maybe all the culmination of his hard work is going to translate to him knocking out Julian Erosa on Saturday. I mean, sometimes you get those nice stories. So, yeah, you got to give a guy like that a lot of credit.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of a mindset thing with the sport, right? Like you see boxing, the record is everything. So you fight 20 male men and then you fight 20 firemen because they're stronger than male men, right?
And then you fight Tank Davis, right?
Yeah, right. And then things don't go your way. But yeah, with MMA, like it's a thing where you want to fight the best of the best. Like you even see people come into the UFC and the first thing they're talking about is, I want to be a champion. I want to be a champion. Like Raul Rosas Jr. He's like, I'm 18. I want to be a champion. I picked Christian Rodriguez. I was like, you're 18. Like there's no way. There's no way. And Christian Rodriguez did his thing. But yeah, it's a thing. Thank you. It's a thing with MMA. It's a thing with MMA for sure. By the way, the Levy fight is canceled. I know. I'm really burnt up about it. We talked about it a little bit before stream. Who did you like there? Did you like Levy or did you like Pete Rodriguez? Just out of curiosity.
You know, it's Levy gang all day, my man.
There you go. There you go. You know, you ever see the show Schitt's Creek? The guy who, like, the main character, his name is Dan Levy. Like when I was looking you up.
No shit.
Yeah, I was looking you up. I was like, oh, that's the guy on Netflix.
That's funny as fuck because someone like kept making like a Schitt's Creek joke like on my videos and I didn't understand the reference. Now I do. So there's a dude named Dan Levy. That's funny.
Yeah. I think it's with a Y though. I think it's with a Y.
Yeah. So is Natan Levy. His with a Y also. Mine's with an I, like Levi Jeans, but still, it's pronounced like that.
Gotcha. This next fight that we're looking at, I think it's properly lined, which normally means that it's a bad thing, right? But Rodolfo Vieira, uh, last time out, he loses to Chris Curtis. I don't know how you couldn't be impressed with him. 0 for 20 on takedown attempts. And one of the biggest things people say about Rodolfo Vieira, or at least they were saying before that fight, is cardio issues. You know how good of cardio you have to have for Chris Curtis to be sticking a jab in your face, ripping you to the body, and you're still shooting 20 takedowns and getting to the final bell? Like, that's crazy. And I don't know if you've ever heard, but Rodolfo Vieira has been really open about being nervous about getting hit. Like, he's about being nervous and being open about that, about taking damage in there. He was taking Chris Curtis's best shots, and he was giving him some solid striking back. And I think that Cody Brundage, outside of a big overhand that clips him like right above the ear or perfectly on the button, I don't see how he wins this fight, man. Like, even last time out against Lord Mihal, who we're going to talk about in a second, he gets reversed. He gets reversed by him. Like, imagine he gets Rodolfo Vieira's back somehow. Rodolfo Vieira's taking that knee with him and bringing it back to Brazil, because there's no way that he's going to be able to hang with the black belt Hunter stuff on the mat. And I think even when they stand, Cody Brundage is a bit chinny, right? We've seen it before, and I think that Rodolfo Vieira's got sneaky power, and some guy who's really learning how to strike now. And obviously, world-class, elite-level athlete. Like, he's one of those guys who probably could have been successful at any sport that he wanted to, and just so happened to be ripping guys' arms off, right? So I love Rodolfo Vieira in this spot. I think he wins by first-round submission. I don't know what the line is for that yet, but that's definitely where I land with this one. Do you feel the same? I'm assuming you probably do.
So Vieira wins in round 1 is plus 140, and then let's see what Vieira via submission is.
Or sub round 1. That's going to be a little bit better than probably around what, like 180 or something.
So for some reason, here we go. So Vieira by submission in round 1 is plus 175. So that's actually like kind of low. Like, so like with most people, it'd be like what, plus 600, plus 750. With Rodolfo, it's plus 175. It just goes to show how good this guy is at jiu-jitsu. And I mean, like I say all the time, bro, there's a reason we do jiu-jitsu and not MMA. It's because we don't want to get hit in the face. So I feel exactly where he's coming from, like, you know, being open about his anxieties and, you know, his concerns, because like I don't want to get hit in the face either. That's why I do jiu-jitsu, man, straight up. But as far as Brundage is concerned, I don't think chinny is the right way. I think it's more of like a bully mentality where, like, if he can, like, you know, have his way with you, he's going to do great. But if you stand up to the bully, he'll kind of take his ball and go home. And what I mean by that is, we'll talk about the Mihal fight in a sec, but go back to his fight against William Knight on Contender Series. And the fight starts off and Cody Brundage is doing his thing. But as soon as William Knight gets on top, Cody Brundage just covers up and lets him pound on him and lets the ref intervene. And literally the exact same thing happened in the Mihal fight. And I thought that, you know, the Dalcha fight and the Trey fight, I thought those were big steps in the right direction for Cody. And I thought that, like, you know, he was turning things around and, you know, maybe he had gotten over that. But the Mihal fight was proof that it's still the same guy. If you stand up to Cody Brundage, you know, he's not exactly known for being the toughest guy. And the thing about Rodolfo, like you said, bro, to shoot 20 takedowns in a UFC fight, especially while you're getting pieced up like that takes a lot of energy and it takes a lot of effort. And just mentally, like, he could have quit at multiple times. He could have just been like, you know what, I'm just gonna go to turtle position, let him pound on me, let the ref intervene, and I'll go home, no big deal. But he kept trying and trying and trying. So I agree with you. I think that Rodolfo, like, obviously his jiu-jitsu is on a different level than Cody Brundage, but if we're just talking about, like, both guys are tired, who's the tougher guy here, I think it's Rodolfo Vieira. So yeah, while Brundage maybe can stuff some takedowns early, the thing about Rodolfo's level of jiu-jitsu is one back take, one, you know, full mount, one guillotine attempt, whatever the case may be. Just give me one of those and you're going to win the fight right then and there. So I agree with you. I got Rodolfo Vieira to get back on track impressively. You know what I mean? Like, I know that, the Curtis fight didn't go his way. It's crazy. He hasn't fought since then. It's almost been a full year. I thought for some reason I was under the impression he already got back on track, but nope. This will be him getting back on track. So I think he comes out here and submits Cody Brundage.
Yeah, I almost want to say that he had a fight booked and then it fell through, but he was supposed to fight sooner than now. I could be wrong. I'm looking into it now, but yeah, I feel the same. And I actually think that there's okay, he was supposed to fight Brundage in November, and then the fight fell through because Vieira had to withdraw. So I think he was injured or something like that, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, I actually think Club and Sub is on the table too. Just pumping out one of those hard jabs that we saw him throw out there against Chris Curtis, and I think he looked good. Like even against Fluffy Hernandez, like he had Fluffy in some trouble early, but Fluffy Hernandez is a dog. That guy's one of my favorite fighters to watch. He's super fun in there. But yeah, dude, I think Rodolfo Vieira eats him up in the first round. And there's props that you just have to attack like that. Like for example, last week, Sergey Pavlovich, you could take Sergey Pavlovich by knockout if you want, but you have to take him by first round knockout if you're going to do that. Same thing with Bruno Silva. You just have to, and it makes sense. And I think that he gets him out of there round one, makes it look easy. Another striker versus grappler match in the co-main event. And if you haven't already, like the video, subscribe to the channel. I don't know how many times I need to tell you this for you to get it through your thick head, but I need you to do that for me. That's all I ask. We're looking at Lord Mihal. He's fighting Caio Borralho this week. Best neck tat in the game by far, right? I believe neck tats this year in the UFC are 2-0. I think that Caio Borralho, if he wins this fight, it's 15 minutes of backpacking like we've seen in the UFC, because on the mat, his control is ridiculous. But I do think that Michal Oleksiejczuk is very, very live to knock him out in this spot. And I think that even though he gets taken down by pretty much a gust of wind, he works up to his feet very well. And he's always working. He's not getting tired. And at 185 pounds, the dude is a problem, throwing hammers. And I don't see this fight going all that long if they're standing on the feet for 90 seconds to 2 minutes.
Yeah, bro. I mean, if Borralho decides that he wants to bang with Michal, Mihal's gonna knock him out. Like, that's just the bottom line. Like, Michal is a marauder, man. Like, I got so much respect for this dude. Like, we talk about how he dropped from 205 to 185. Bro, I think he can make 170. Like, straight up, I think that this guy can make 170. I still think that he's a small guy at 185. Like, I think Caio is going to look significantly bigger than him at 185 pounds. But, like, people keep referring to the Crute fight. Dude, if you look at the size difference between him and Crute, like, the fact that – so Crute took him down 8 times, right? That means that Michal got back up 7 times. Like, the fact that this dude got up 7 times, like, I think that we're a little bit too harsh on his ground game, to be honest. So he drops a weight class, and, man, that fight against Cody Brundage, I guess that's the one we got to talk about because he did get taken down pretty easily. But he works back up to his feet nicely. He's also able to reverse the position. The only issue I have is that, like, you know, Caio is a Damian Maia black belt. So, like, you know, if he gets the back of Michal, it might be over, or it might just, you know, he might be able to control the position for a while. But let me say this, man. Like, I felt like that last fight that Michal had against Muradov, man, Muradov had that fight won. Muradov just kept doing dumb shit. Muradov was lighting him up on the feet. And for whatever reason, Muradov would shoot for takedowns, and he'd keep getting caught in these guillotines, which, credit to Borralho, he's got a nasty guillotine. So Muradov would have to, the way to escape the guillotine is you got to go to your back. So he'd keep going to his back, and he'd lose the rounds that way. But, like, man, he had Borralho done. Borralho was flopping to his back. Borralho had no output on the feet, like, just a little bit more IQ by Muradov, and he's the guy that's fighting Michal in this spot. So on one hand, it's like, you know, Kyle's definitely got better jits than Cody Brundage, you know. So yeah, if he takes down Michal, there is a chance he could insta-sub him. There, I mean, you cannot write off that possibility, but I still think that there's a chance that, like, if Michal can survive, and we got to talk in these terms because, like, it's minus 350 to minus 375 Caio, and it's like plus 300 for Michal. So
Yeah.
You know, if Michal can survive this early going, I think he's a live dog. It's just a big if. So I don't know. I don't know if he will or if he won't. It's just about like at plus 300, am I willing to find out? I'm definitely not willing to lay the chalk here. And it's nothing against Caio. I bet on Caio against Omar Gaziev, but that was like plus 110, man. And I bet on Muradov against Caio, and I thought that we had a great chance. I just thought that like we're roughing this guy up on the feet, and then we're shooting for takedowns. Like Muradov's not a fucking a grappler. Like, you know, his fight with GM3, after that, he was probably like, dude, I can grapple. I just got caught. I want to show I can grapple, which is like, nah, man, don't do that, you know? So I still think that Borralho, like, it might not be this fight, but he's getting exposed soon, man. He's talented for sure, but like, there's a lot of holes in his game concerning his gas tank. I think his volume's on the lower side. And I think that if he can't get that Damian Maia black belt going, that he might get exposed. So it's a dog or pass situation for me, man.
Yeah, he's going to lose at some point, and I do think that this is absolutely a dog or pass situation. I think that Michal Oleksiejczuk, he's got the aggression, the hand speed, the forward movement, and just the willingness to slug it out, where he can knock this guy out inside of 2 minutes. He really could, inside of, say, the first 90 seconds of the fight. Like you said, the Cody Brundage fight, he was taking his back easily, and Caio Borralho can just sit there. One fight that I compare this to for Borralho is his fight with Armen Petrosyan. Like I thought that Petrosyan was going to win. I picked him to win, and he just kept getting to his back. He kept holding him down. He's taking everybody down that he wants to. I think he's converting takedowns in the UFC at like 75% or something like that. So yeah, obviously, like it's striker versus grappler, but I do think that there's just the line's too wide. Michal Oleksiejczuk is too hot right now. He hits too goddamn hard. And Caio Borralho, his stand-up is going to get exposed by somebody one of these days. And why not? Why not Lord Michal here? So the pick for me, I don't know if you gave your pick, but the pick for me is Michal Oleksiejczuk, the underdog here. This is a classic underdog that we would hit on this channel. There's a situation just like this. So I like Michal Oleksiejczuk to get it done. Are you picking Borralho, or are you picking the big favorite here?
Man, I mean, listen, pure pick and bets are two different things. There's no chance in hell. There's no chance in hell I would lay this minus 350 on Borralho. Like, if I'm going to bet this fight, it's 100% going to be a shot on Michal. Pure pick, I mean, I guess I'll go Borralho to take him down and submit him, but like, I'm not convinced that happens at all, man. Like, I really think that Borralho will get exposed soon. I think that Michal has been getting a lot better, and I think 85. I want to say it's optimal weight class, but I don't think it is. I think 170s is optimal weight class, but 85 is a big step in the right direction compared to 205, like 20 pounds lighter. But it's funny because I'm telling you, bro, Caio is going to be the bigger guy here.
He is.
You know, and like you'd think that a dude dropping from 205 would have the size advantage. Not the case here. But once Michal, like, hopefully he gets past this one, but once he finally gets to, like, you know, the top 15 at middleweight, that's when he might get exposed again. And that's when he's probably going to be like, man, I should drop the 70s. Because, like, bro, think about this. Phil Rowe is bigger than Michal, and Phil Rowe's a 70-pounder.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, do Phil Rowe versus Michal at 170. I want to see what's up in that fight.
Yeah, that'd be a banger. That'd be I love me some Philly Rowe, and I think they would throw down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Michal Oleksiejczuk's got no muscle definition. He's just smooth, right? Like,
let me say this. If you look on his Instagram, he, for the first time ever, Kunath, I finally saw some abs. They were poking through this time. So maybe he got a new Polish doctor. Maybe he's finally been doing sit-ups. So hopefully it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, hopefully. But I could totally see him down at 170 pounds. You see Kelvin Gastelum trying to get down to 170 pounds as well. Here we go again.
Bro, I've been hearing that shit for the last 10 years, so I don't want to hear that anymore.
It's like the reverse John Jones, right? Yeah. We have our main event here. I have never in my life, there's a couple of things I've never done in my life.
Okay.
I've never done crack. I've also never bet against Ricky Simone because he's the truth. I love me some Ricky Simone, right? And he's looked great in the UFC, 8 wins in the UFC. He's hot right now in a 5-fight winning streak. And the last fight against Jack Shore was really just showing you that Ricky Simone is firmly in his prime right now. And Jack Shore left the division. Oh, I was cutting too much weight, whatever. Did you see how he looked against Makwan Amirkhani? Like he was carrying a lot of it. Like he was moving more excessive weight than Pablo Escobar. So you saw that Ricky Simone ran him out of the division because he's hitting hard. He's taking guys down. He's fighting with a ton of tenacity. And if he can keep that pace for 5 rounds, being the best wrestler in the division, he's a better wrestler than Merab. I said it. If he can do that for 5 rounds, Song Yadong's he's gonna get cooked. I don't think he's going to be able to keep up with that pace for 5 rounds. Let me know if I'm crazy, but I'm super confident here in Ricky Simone. This is my guy.
Well, we got something in common. I've never tried crack either. So, and I've also never bet against Ricky Simone, but I've lost a shitload on Ricky Simone when he fought Uriah Faber, who is Song Yadong's head coach. And if you take it a step further and you watch that fight, right? Uriah Faber knocks him out in under a minute. And then they go to the post-fight interview. And what does Uriah Faber say in his post-fight interview? He says, I learned that right hand from my student, Song Yadong. So there's a history here. So this is Ricky Simone's chance to get back at Team Alpha Male, like put that Faber fight firmly behind him. Because, like, you know, for a lot of newer fans, they might not remember, but I remember because Ricky Simone cost a lot of people a lot of money, myself included. Yeah. And it was one of those things where, like, we started calling him Ricky Simon for a little bit. We weren't like, nah, he ain't Ricky Simone. He's Ricky Simon now, you know? No. But I think now he's finally come around. He's shown that, like, hey, he's gotten past that. So it's one of those things where, like, the early going, if you have a bet on Ricky Simone, this early going, like, that fucking sphincter is going to be puckered, man. Like, you're going to be sweating because Song Yadong has disgusting hands in the early going. He's got great takedown defense in the early going. I mean, and the dude's been like 25 for the last 10 years. So, like, he's, you know, an ageless wonder. The only thing about it is that Song Yadong tends to slow down as fights progress. Evidence in the Marlon Chito Vera fight, evidence in as recently as the Corey Sandhagen fight. But that's when you push a pace on him. I'm not talking about these dudes that are going to have like 50-50 striking fights with them. I'm talking about you mix in takedown attempts. Like, and Ricky's one of those dudes. Like we were talking about earlier, how Rodolfo, you know, attempted 20 takedowns, right? Like this dude, Ricky, like since his Rob Font fight, 6 takedowns against Rob, 7 takedowns against Borg, 7 takedowns against some random dude, 6 takedowns against Kelleher, 2 takedowns against Asunsao.
Who even was that guy?
I don't know, but he treated him accordingly. And then 2 takedowns against a guy that on the broadcast, they were calling him the Welsh GSP. I didn't call him that, but they were calling him that. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is that the longer the fight goes, the better it is for Ricky. But that early going, you have to be careful because it's not only Uriah Faber that knocked out Ricky Simone. Back in the day, what's his name? Anderson Dos Santos. He dropped and submitted Ricky Simone. Ronnie Yaya badly rocked Ricky Simone. So just saying, in the early going, Ricky can be cracked, and Song is not a guy you want to get cracked against.
No.
But besides that, if he can get past this early going, you know, scot-free and, like, you know, you're not getting cracked too bad. You're not, you know, you didn't get dropped the first round and you're trying to recover the rest of the fight. Like, if he can get past this early going, then I agree with you. I do think that come the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, if we even get there, that's when that wrestling pace is going to come through. That's when he's going to be able to show that, like, hey, I am a 5-round fighter. And I'm not one of these guys that thinks that Merab fight was bullshit. And I'll tell you why. If you watch that Merab fight, start it in round 3 and start it from the sequence when Merab went for that takedown on Ricky Simone. Merab actually knocks himself out on the takedown attempt. I know that sounds crazy, but y'all need to go back and watch it. Start it from that 3rd round. It's like in the last 2 minutes of the fight. So Merab shoots for a takedown on Ricky Simone. He actually goes headfirst into the mat and he goes limp. That's why Ricky Simone was able to sweep him with that guillotine attempt. And from there, I mean, I already thought that Merab was out cold. I know Merab was doing like some bicycle kicking or whatever. I thought that was more so his body's reaction. Like sometimes when you're unconscious, like your body moves in weird fucking ways. Like it is what it is. Some dudes convulse, some dudes drool. Merab does the bicycle. I don't know what it is. That's just what it is, man.
It's a real thing.
And then afterwards, like Merab, you know, when the bell finally rang, like Merab like lifts up and then he goes back down. He's completely done, bro. So that was not a bullshit stoppage. Ricky 100% finished Merab, and he even took down Merab a couple times. And then back in the day, he beat Montel Jackson too. So like Ricky's been paying his dues for a while. So it just comes down to the same dynamic I've been saying. Like Ricky in the early going is susceptible to getting cracked, and Song Yadong can absolutely crack. So if Ricky can get me past this early going, I think that it's going to be smooth sailing, but it's a big if. So my pick will be Ricky Simón, but it's contingent on getting past like 7.5 minutes of fire.
Yeah, no, and the thing too is Song Yadong, it's the boxing is so tight. And that's the part that worries me too. Like the finishing sequence against Marlon Moraes tells you everything you need to know. Like the way he comes up with that uppercut. I will say with the Uriah Faber fight for my guy Ricky Simón, that was Sacktown magic, right? They're in Sacramento. Everybody's going crazy for Uriah Faber. He lands a perfect punch. Did the ref jump in a little early? Like, could it have went just a little further, you think?
You talking about Ricky and Uriah?
Yeah.
Listen, bro, I had 5 units on Ricky Simón, and Ricky pissed me off so much in that fight. Like, yeah, they could have let him, you know, take a couple more and face plant, but like he was done, man. He was trying to wrestle the ref after that, and yeah, he was done.
Gotcha. I think that this fight could look a lot like the fight that Song Yadong had with Cody Stamann, where he was taken down a whole bunch. I think it was 6 times. He was controlled for over an entire round, over the 3 rounds. And it was a majority decision, or was it a draw?
It was a draw.
It was a draw. And
you know what's funny? It was a draw because Song lost the points. So Song would have actually won that fight, and it would have been a robbery.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I think that this fight, he took him down 5 times now that I'm looking at it. But I think that you're absolutely spot on. If he can catch Ricky Simón cold, he's got him, right? Because he packs a punch. But if Ricky Simón can even get 1 takedown, I think he can get more takedowns, right? We even saw Corey Sandhagen take Song Yadong down. He attempted like 15 takedown attempts to get there, but Corey Sandhagen isn't a prolific takedown artist. So yeah, I like Ricky Simón as well. He's the pick for me as well. I think that he wins. I think that he finds a submission here. I think if Ricky Simón is going to have success with his grappling, he probably finds an arm triangle or something like that. You can tell he's crazy strong for 135 pounds, and that seems like a strong guy move, the arm triangle. You see a lot of big, strong guys with wide backs slapping on arm triangles, and I think he could do the same thing to Song Yadong. I think we'll find out really what this fight is going to be like if and when they hit the ground, because if you see Song Yadong go flat for any amount of time, you know it's over. I feel like every week we see like a Junior Tafa last week. That guy's back was flatter than a marble countertop last week as soon as he hit the ground, and you knew it was a wrap at that point. So yeah. I appreciate you hopping on, Dan. We had a short little card to go through, 11 fights. We got through it in less than an hour and 15 minutes. So I like the pace, this was fun. I appreciate you stopping in.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you so much for having me, and thanks to all your listeners as well.
Yeah, next time we do this at your house, you just let me know, and I'll make myself available. Because let me tell you guys something. We were talking about this before this happened. I sent Dan a message like, "Hey, Dan and I never spoke to each other. Hey, you want to be on my live show next week?" Dan's never even seen the channel. So yes, within minutes, and now here we are. So it's crazy how things work. I appreciate your agreeableness, your professionalism, very sharp with the breakdowns as well. Check out Dan's stuff. I'll put the banner there as well. And again, you'll be able to find some of his stuff in the description. But if you know me, you probably know Dan at this point already. So thank you so much. I wish you all the best of luck with your bets. Dan, I wish you the best of luck with your bets as well.
Likewise, man. Thank you again. Really appreciate it.
All right. Have a good night. I will see you guys later in the week.